Hi, everybody, and welcome to the KubeStellar IO meeting. Today I am at KubeCon, so Mike is going to fill in for me, get the meeting started, and then I'll carry on after in a few minutes. Thanks, Mike. Take it away, please.
Okay, so, well, the first thing is actually maybe a report from Eddie, an update from KubeCon. We did have a little bit of presence there.
Yeah, put me a little later in the agenda and I'll be able to pick it up.
All right, then. So next item is changes to the architecture. So the main new news is that we did get the next release out, 0.21.0. The main new thing about it is the switch to the so-called pluggable transport. Perhaps surprising to some people in terms of the word pluggable. This means in some sense selectable, and there's only one selection available right now. There's only one choice, so you have to make it, which is the OCM transport plugin. So let's see, documentation. There is a question about the website that we're discussing about. Currently the default release on the website is 0.14. There is some discussion about what to do about that. Release 0.21 is there. We did not even attempt to get release 0.20 on the website. We've only just begun to get work on the website, and currently what's in the website for release 0.21.0 is very minimal, not exactly incorrect, but there's very little content in the website. There is a pointer to looking at things in GitHub if you're diligent enough to find it, or dedicated enough to find it, but I wouldn't rely on everybody doing that. If you look in main, we've got much more of the content promoted to being visible on the website. So I think we've been discussing some choices there. And I think the three choices that I think we've been considering, one choice is to simply change the default landing page to show what's there now for release 0.21.0. Another choice, of course, is just to leave it as it is. Because we had originally, when we changed the new architecture, we'd originally enthused about how it would enable interface continuity, but we still don't have feature parity, which means there is an interface discontinuity there. Another choice is to take what we've got right now in main and cut a patch release, calling it 0.21.1. That does have better website content. Another thing we could do is take the release branch that we have for 0.21.0 and cherry pick the website improvements to there. And another thing we could do is before we cut the 0.21.1 release, do some more thorough testing of 0.21.0. So those are the choices that we are considering. Let's see. Next, let me just stop and ask for any comments on that. All right.
Maybe more than a comment, a question, Mike.
Yes.
Is it required to actually make a release branch even for a patch release for the documentation perspective?
Yes, the way the website works, the website is based on GitHub pages and a thing called Mike, which I had nothing to do with, but it is driven by branches in GitHub, in Git.
So not necessarily we can avoid it. Currently, the workflow that we are doing is triggered by a branch that is starting by the word release dash. We can, of course, change the workflow, but it will be easier probably to put the
but it's
branch.
more than the workflow.
I think wait. I think that the reasoning behind it was, and you can have the document without the branch. I think that the reasoning behind it, which is reasonable, is that people that if you think that people will use documentation of release X, they probably want to be able to easily also check out release X, right? So you want to have a branch for that. So that's the reasoning. I think it makes sense, and it's not a problem to create a bunch. So
Yeah, but
you just need
it
to
doesn't seem a common practice. At least I haven't seen this as a common practice to create a release branch for every patch release. Usually there is.
Yes, that's right. But slow down, guys. It is more than the workflow. The workflow is there the way it is because of the way Mike works. Mike populates the GitHub pages. Remember that we have navigation, right? We have a navigation menu amongst the GitHub pages, sections, or releases, right? There's a concept in Mike of a release, and it is tied to a Git branch.
No, that's not true. The GitHub is a single branch. GitHub pages is a single branch.
Yes, and if you look inside it, it's got directories. And
Right.
Mike is the
It goes
software that
direct.
automatically populates the content of those directories based on the content of other Git branches.
So this we need to look. Okay, I wasn't familiar with that. I saw that Mike is just taking the commit that you pointed to, and it will create and populate the GitHub pages from that. It doesn't really need to be a branch, but we can look into that.
I mean, in theory, you can just use a tag if that was supported, right?
Yeah,
Just
I
check out.
think you're correct. I think that what it does, Mike, is basically taking the branch name. Out of that branch name, it actually fetch the commit number, and from that it generate the pages. But
That's
we
what I
can look into
said, is it creates the navigation, the
Right,
top
Mike,
level
but that
navigation.
means that, yes, but that means that we can probably work around that by supplying the exact commit number or a tag. But it's not important. We can take it all offline in terms of how to do that. It's technicality. And first, if we at all want to do that, if we want to avoid having branch, if it's just for generating the document, we can do that. I think without. So that we do want to a branch, but
I mean, I expect to generate patch releases often, right? It's normal when you have fixes, other stuff.
yeah.
I don't think we need to create a branch every time. That is.
Yeah, I think that also remember also, Paolo, you're correct, but remember that also what happened normally in our documentation is that for patch releases, we also do not create. It's not only the branch. Mike is as Mike noted, the Mike tool, it doesn't generate the release documentation. So in the pull down menu of the versions, you get to see, you do not see patch releases. You see
You
only
see whatever we choose to put into a Git branch. Okay, so I had started down the path of choosing to make a release branch for every patch release. There is some virtue in having documentation for every release, which is that there's a correspondence, right? If you want the idea that a release is an immutable thing and includes documentation of itself, okay, you're led to kind of this position that we're currently at.
So for now, let's summarize, Paolo. Probably we can agree that let's postpone the discussion, the general discussion of what we want to do in general with patch releases. We are talking specifically now on the patch release for documentation. So for that, at least I'm fine with creating a branch and having documentation for that patch release specifically. So I'm fine with that. Paolo, is that okay?
Agree right, we knew that. Very strange. Okay. So is anybody on the call responsible for this item here in the agenda? Error messages from clusteradm.
It might be some old stuff that was here, you know, from previous thing that Andy copied the old agenda.
Well, since no one's speaking up for it, I'll just move on. All right, agenda, I'm sorry, testing. We do want to increase our unit test coverage. I will point out that some of our controllers, by their very nature, are rely on so much Kube API server behavior that it makes more sense to get the coverage of them through integration tests rather than unit tests. So I think we should actually say unit testing and integration testing. We do want to get better test coverage. So let's see, also end-to-end testing. Let's see, generalized. We have introduced Ginkgo-based testing. We've reduced the testing that is expressed in Bash because of it's largely covered by the testing in Ginkgo. We retain some testing that is expressed in Bash because that is the only place we tell a contributor who has made a local copy of our repo and is working on changes to it. This end-to-end testing that is expressed in Bash is the only place we tell a contributor how to exercise their local modified copy of the repo. And we absolutely need to have that documented. So that's why we are retaining some testing expressed in Bash. Let's see.
Mike, I have a question on actually the bullet point itself, if I may.
Yes.
We can now test releases using the negative released flag.
You mean dash
it's
released?
not,
Yes.
It's not clear to me where this is actually being used. Is it used manually, or is there some Git CI/CD method using it?
Yeah, there is an open issue. So the answer is there is an open issue. You can take it to yourself to actually do release testing.
Ezra, I own that open issue,
Okay.
and
Right.
I've been trying to get clarification on whether Mike has actually implemented usage of that flag at any point.
No. Again, no, there is no one is using that automatically because the automatic CI/CD is not using the release because the automatic CI/CD we currently have.
That's what I observed, and that answers my question. Because I thought you used this, Mike, when on the last release we issued, and I was wondering if there was something I missed on how you used it. I'm gathering that it was done manually.
Yes, Ezra is correct. What you see now is an interim state. We do need to do something about testing of releases. I think there's two things to do. I think we can have some workflows. I don't know when, if ever, they would be automatically triggered. They need to be run after a release is created to test that release. So I think maybe we just have a workflow that can be triggered manually, or maybe more than one. I want to be testing releases thoroughly. This includes testing on multiple OSs. And I would like to get testing on small machines like Raspberry Pi and Jetson Nano, which I don't think we can rely on GitHub or Proud to do for us. So I think we should be enhancing the release procedures document to talk about testing of a release. So I think that's part of it. And that will be talking about using these flags. So I see two uses of this, some workflows and some instructions for additional manual testing.
Cool.
And in addition to your specific question, Effie, we can certainly add now a workflow for that. There is one caveat, and I think that for now, maybe let's do that workflow that you manually trigger because it's a little bit tricky to figure out which version you want. Currently, it's an input parameter, right? So the workflow supports you feeding the input parameter, but that's only on manual triggering.
Well, slow down, Ezra.
Yeah.
Actually, first off, I want to say I misspoke. The interesting thing is, I think for GitHub Actions or workflows, to test on multiple instruction set architectures. Now, the existing flag does not take a version number. The release that it tests is the most recent one made as of the version of the repo that you're running the test from.
I saw that there is a version parameter that you are correct, Mike. It's I mixed my wishful thinking with that. Yeah, I saw that I had in mind that we want to add also parameter of explicitly specify version, but we currently do not have it. So yeah, I misspoke.
All right, so if we're done with that one, we can move on the integration testing for the binding controller. That's actually been there for a while. Recently merged was an increase in the severity of that test, or it's much more stressful now. It does test a lot of thrashing of objects involved, both concurrent and serial thrashing. So it's a much better test. Let's see. And then maybe we can move on to the next one, or any comments there? All right, let's move on to the next one. Braulio has been doing some long-term or more, well, maybe I should just stop and I don't think he's here. Braulio, is Braulio here?
Doesn't look like he's here.
No, all right. Yeah, so he's been
Well,
doing
he's on
some,
the show floor, probably walking around.
yeah, all right. So he's been doing some testing. He's described here as soak testing, but I think what I've seen reports about is more of a stress testing. So I'm not entirely clear.
Well, he
but,
was doing both. He was doing both, Mike. He started with a
Okay.
stress testing that was creating a large number of objects, measuring end-to-end the latency in creating the objects, also trying to break down the latency in the different parts of the path of the system. But then the second part of his work was also to do this soak testing. That's something that I think he's gonna start, or was starting just before the trip to KubeCon. It was to
All
have
right.
this long-running tests to see if
Okay.
things
So
break
for the
down.
purpose of this meeting, I think since he's not here to give us a report, all we can do right now are his existing reports somewhere that anyone in the world can look at?
Does reports, I don't know where they are published, so I guess we have to wait for him to wait on this.
All right. Yeah, I think it would be legitimate for him to publish them for anyone to see. Maybe not. I'll let him say. Maybe he thinks that they're a little specific to the environment he was testing in, so we'll have to get back to him on this. All right. Andy, are you ready to talk about KubeCon?
Yeah, I can give you an update. Thanks, Mike, for running this. I appreciate it. That was the most bizarre walk through a security line I've ever seen. I'll describe it in some detail another time. So yeah, met with I think we had two big places where we were present on the show floor. Good real estate in both cases. There were, just to give you some context, there's 15,000 folks that attended the North America Chicago version of KubeCon last fall. This time around, it's about 12,000. Although the number was slightly smaller, the way that the show floor was laid out what made it so that there was more interaction and more density per square foot. And one of the things they did that was really a great idea is they put the partner pavilion between escalators and bathrooms and food. And so anywhere anybody traveled, they need to cross our paths, which was fantastic. And we were located on an aisle, which we got a lot of traffic. So we had some good discussions. Donnie and I were at that booth. There was a poster session put on by Braulio and Glar at the other side of the hall. And they got a lot of good foot traffic too. They spoke about digital architecture and then the inclusion of KubeStellar to deploy the models that were required in order to do the assessment of digital agriculture and et cetera. So in the booth where we were, I guess, how could I describe it? You could think of them as about 15 different pods, double-sided. Each had signage above with the name of the project that you were representing. You had access to a monitor and, of course, a cable to hook up to that monitor. And so we were able to put out our wares, stickers that I had brought along, shirts as well. We exhausted ourselves with shirts and stickers, and I had some good discussions with people ranging anywhere from universities and you know, customers that represented themselves as developers, operators, SRE types, and of course other projects that came up and spoke to us. I was most focused on Donnie Rose joined me from Israel. He was most focused on talking to folks that were more end customers, developers, operators, SREs, those folks, other people that are maybe represent directors of those positions like development or research, test or localization or things like that. I was going after B2B, which is more a project to project angle. And so I spoke with a couple of different projects, two of which I thought were really eager to work with us, which was great. One was Pipe CD. They are an aggregate of Argo and Flux. And so they say, you know, you can choose whichever underlying CD mechanism you want, and then they'll expand it to others like Harness and Dagger and etc. But you can choose any one of those you want, and what they've done is just normalize the interface for all of those, and so that's pretty cool. They're very eager to work with us, whether it be in that we deliver to them or they deliver to us. And, you know, we still have to work out the particulars there. The other one that was really interesting was Akamai. Akamai is working on a, how do I put this? An in context or sovereign or federated view of storage, which means wherever a workload is running, and based on its location, it knows a bit about or will know about. You can give it policies as to where it should be getting its storage from dynamically. And it was surprising to me that they didn't have this already, but they're interested in working with us on having the ability to do just-in-time deployments that then can reach back into Akamai and the CDN and grab storage endpoints, which is, I think, is a fantastic idea because it's just the merger or a nice complement between the control plane, the API machinery, and the data plane. So we'll get on that when we get back. I also had a lot of drummed up a lot of discussion around university programs and interns for open source. I discussed with the marketing department at they have open at office hours there, and I was able to reach out to them. It just so turns out the one that we're cultivating down in Valencia College in Miami, Valencia University, excuse me, they were in touch with the folks in the marketing department, so they knew who we were. So that was really a boon. That was nice to hear that our name was resonating. So KubeStellar's on the map. I've talked to the folks that were in charge of giving out talks, such as the lightning talks, and made sure we made a name for ourselves. And hopefully in North America, in Salt Lake City in November, it'll be a little easier for us to get A, booth space, B, a talk, and C, I made proposals with a few other folks about CFPs, about joining forces to talk together. And one in particular is WASM, which I know it's not really on our radar, but WASM, WebAssemblies. I know you can't really justify a value just yet for what KubeStellar would be used for it with, but for whatever it's worth, if you look at the number of talks that are devoted to WASM at KubeCon, it's, for whatever the reason, they have an incredible influence over the discussions and the sessions that are handed out. So I think it would be cool to partner up with them on a CFP and see about getting a spot where we'd have a session to talk about what KubeStellar does, talk about what WASM does, which everybody ad nauseum already knows, and then talk about how we work together. And that would get us on the map there, I think. So it would put us like front and center. So I was looking for hot topics. I was looking for university programs. I was looking for projects to work together with. And then I got a handful of other contacts that we'll be cultivating over the next couple of weeks to discuss more about how we attack and address them. Yeah, I don't think I want to say any more than that right now about what transpired, but I'm open to taking any questions you might have.
Yeah, and they may ask how was the traffic at the booths? I mean, people was coming, asking questions, or how was the
Yeah, I tried to characterize that at the beginning of this discussion. Maybe you missed it, but we were positioned, Paolo. You'd get a kick out of this.
Yeah,
They put
I've heard about the location. I was asking
Yeah.
in general, our booths in particular, if you are getting good
Yeah,
traffic.
we pulled
Good
people
question.
in. People weren't coming to us like, oh, tell me about KubeStellar. We pulled traffic in.
Mhm.
If that's what you're looking for in terms of a characterization.
Okay. Any
Nobody was
deep,
beating down our door.
any deep technical question came out of those discussions?
No, but I did promise customization. So you should know that. So a couple of people did pick up on the status, not being shown in the demonstration that I had. The singleton status, I don't know what I'm doing wrong, but I don't know what I'm doing wrong that I don't get it, but I use it as an excuse to show them that pods weren't running in the hub. And that seemed to pass for a few people. Other people didn't really latch on to that. But customization did come up fairly regularly. Like, how would you, it's great that you can pass this out to quite a few end clusters, but what happens when they have different configurations, right? And so that prompted the discussion about customization, and that's about as deep as we got. Some other folks talked about, is KubeStellar in a scheduler, right? They wanted to know, could we do something advanced in terms of scheduling? And I said, no, we relied on other, third parties like MCAD or Q to do that sort of work for us. Yeah.
And a couple of questions. So first,
Sure.
It's good because customization is scheduled to become
Yes.
very, very, very soon. One thing that actually and singleton we know that we support, but I was wondering, did people indeed, because it's multi-cluster, so no one actually asked what are you doing with statuses if I have a lot of works, and specifically, did anyone talked about scale? How do you do large scale and so on? This is the second question. And the third, did you get a comparison question, right?
Yeah.
How
Good
are you
questions.
different than OCM or something?
Right.
And what were the competitors they brought up?
Right. So, okay, let's go to the first question. So I think your first question was on status and grouping and so forth. So I mentioned that we can do singleton and we can do group status. So that was first. So I think that kind of satisfies your first question, right?
Okay.
And your second question again, remind me?
I actually remember only my third.
So let's go to your third question first. Second, I mean. So what was your third question?
The competitors.
Oh yeah, competitors. Right.
The second one was about large scale. What is
Large
the typical scale? What is the typical scale people that talk to you are talking about?
Yeah. So I don't think, to my recollection, there was no discussion about large scale.
You might have some selection bias there. Maybe people who are interested didn't even bother to talk to you.
Well, you asked me to report. You asked me to report what I heard and what I was asked. I wasn't. I mean, that's not selection bias. That's what happened. That's the truth.
Exactly.
So nobody asked
my
me
comment was
about.
You're right. My comment was directed to interpreting or consuming your remarks. Please go ahead with your report.
Okay. Nobody asked about scale. So I'll be clear about that. As far as competition was concerned, the majority of people jumped out and talked about Argo, the continuous delivery again, right? But I said, we consume from Argo. Maybe in the future we might deliver to Argo. I said it's a simplicity that we bring and a nativeness that we allow, right, to go from simple tools to deliver to one cluster and then to automatically have that fan out to multiple clusters. So I think as far as, I mean, I'm going to let Donnie be more objective than I on this subject, because you know that I've had, I think it's a good start. It's definitely, KubeStellar is definitely a component at this point of something bigger, but I didn't see anybody, you know, knocking down the door asking us, you know, can we start today with this? So I think what's going to pay off for us in the end is to show by integration the things that we're slotted to do with Kubeflow pipelines. I think should be very effective because it'll get us on the map in the AI space. Storage with Akamai. And I think in terms of partnerships with someone like PipeCD and these universities, I think that'll be very helpful in terms of promoting us. But I think overall, I think people were likening us more like, well, okay, I already have the kube okay, so or I can just
Andy,
do
you
a
were
dash
dropped out.
dash. Oh, sorry. How about now? Can you hear me?
Yes, we lost you at,
Okay.
I already have a kube config.
Yeah, so I already have a kube config for these edge clusters. So what's the difference between me just doing a dash dash context? I said, well, you know, that was the question I think I received the most. And I said, well, you know, the idea here is that you don't have to do dash dash context all the time and keep changing context. You could go directly to one cluster and then have it fan out automatically to multiple, and then you can do all kinds of things like filtering on labels.
And that's an excellent. I actually like this input because I can show you. We can have many more advantages than what you just said. If the comparison, it's actually very good if we have customers that actually have multiple clusters with multiple contexts, and this is how they work today. That's a very good customer for us. Okay. So yeah,
Yeah.
I'm actually happy
So
with
that's what I want to leave
wondering if,
Donnie to.
so you
Yeah,
didn't
go ahead.
you didn't hear OCM or ACM from anyone, right?
No, actually, you know, I came right out and mentioned that we already use OCM. Some people acknowledged they knew what that was, but the majority of folks didn't. So
Okay.
here's what I can give you in terms of a leg up on this, right? I think there exists, that's my hypothesis, there exists different levels of maturity in terms of operations and delivery of resources throughout a multi-cluster environment. Those that are just starting out, if you believe that there are varying levels of maturity, then I would also go so far as to say that there are also folks that are more open to new ways of doing deployment, such as KubeStellar, versus ways that they've already baked into their automation chain. And so, you know, vis-a-vis things like Argo. And so I think there is a faction of people that are just starting out or are in the middle of trying to figure that out and would like to do that. Oh, there is one that I forgot. Bloomberg. You will laugh when you hear this, but Bloomberg effectively implemented KIST. The KIST proof of concept that we built, they effectively did it themselves. So I've got meetings scheduled to talk with them after KubeCon about how they can move to KubeStellar. So there are folks out there experimenting, and it may be not in the open necessarily, but they are talking about it openly, and maybe there's an opportunity there to work with them. They use the KIST solution that they created primarily to deploy dynamic resources, and static resources. And for dynamic resources, they use Argo, but it's not in the same group as it's experimenting with their KIST prototype. So I hope to have a conversation with Bloomberg about them using KubeStellar and potential for them to use it for both static and dynamic deployments. Does that help you, Ezra, or and Paulo?
Yeah, it does.
Yeah, that was excellent. Thank you.
Okay.
And I hope you enjoy your time there, right?
Yeah, I was very surprised at Paris. I love it here. I think if you ever get the chance, you should come visit. And I wasn't sure because I spent a lot of time in Montreal when I was growing up in my university years, and it wasn't at all appealing. But to know that the French were very kind and welcoming, and they were great hosts for this event. So I would definitely come back again, and I think each of you should consider a trip to Paris in your future. Thanks, Mike, for the time. I'll yield back.
Right. Thank you. All right. I'll just continue on through the agenda here. Next item is decoupling of KubeFlex and KubeStellar. I think this is old text in the agenda. I will observe that with the transport controller, we do have a step in that direction. The container image that does the transport controller is not coupled to KubeFlex at all. The pod that runs that container image contains the coupling in a couple of init containers that extract the needed information from KubeFlex, some kube configs, and then make it available, pass it along to the container that runs the transport controller. And we do want to also do decoupling in the other controller, which is the controller manager. I don't know if there's any particular news. Does anybody want to say anything more about this right now? All right, let's move on. On Helm charts, maybe I'll just call on Franco here.
Yes, so there is no progress. The PR has not been reviewed yet.
I think you're working on, I'm seeing traffic on at least 2 Helm charts. There is.
Okay, but this is specific. I think this was specific for the KubeFlex PR. I did submit a couple more PR for Helm chart, specifically to clean up some of the CRD installation and move them in the appropriate CRDs folder of the Helm chart for the status add-on, as well as the KubeStellar proper chart, as well as for the transport chart. And I'm working on developing I mean, it's more, first draft is out, but there's still some work on the Helm chart for the transport plugin going on right now.
Okay, thank you. I think that PR about moving the CRDs, that got merged yesterday, right?
One of them for KubeStellar did, for the status add-on didn't yet. And
Okay, thank you.
the PR for KubeFlex has not done any movement in a while.
Right.
And
I think I commented on that one. I think that because it is referring to KubeStellar, I think that content would be better if it were homed in the KubeStellar repo rather than the KubeFlex repo, for reasons of avoiding circular dependencies between repos.
yes, so right now the reference is commented out. There is no an actual reference, and what is commented out now eventually will move into the documentation in the KubeFlex, KubeStellar repo in the command. Will be part of the Helm installation command in KubeStellar.
Right, I understand that. Yes, I do understand that. I think there's still some issues, but I don't want to get into it right here in this meeting. So that's an ongoing bit of development. Okay. Any other comments on the Helm chart work?
Not on my side.
All right. Next up then on the agenda, interns. Actually, Andy was talking about that a little bit. And I think he's the author of this item here. Let me just call on Andy again. Do you want to say anything more about interns, Andy? I don't know if he's able to respond.
Sorry, Mike, go ahead. Try me again on that. I didn't hear you.
Yep. Do you want to say anything more about interns for open source? That's next up on the agenda.
Yeah, in the interns for open source space, we have applied from Georgia Tech for 10 different. So
I'm
we should
sorry,
get a
Andy,
handful of those.
wait a minute, Andy, I'm sorry.
We'll see how that works out. I'll know, I think, next week.
You're dropping out, Andy. I don't know if you can hear me. Hey, we can't hear you. All right. I'm going to assume Andy's having connectivity problems. All right. So you can read the agenda as much as I know. Does anybody else that can talk have anything else to say about this? Okay, I'll take it that let's move on. GitOpsCon. Let's see. It says here we have a waitlisted talk. Polls in the community. Actually, that's an outdated one. We do have 2 active polls. We just edit this right now. Maybe 3. There is let's see. Focus on bugs, customization. Let's see, what was the 3rd one? Okay, no one's going to tell me. And we have one yet to be done. I think we should be, there's, well, I'll stop there. Those are the polls we have. Anybody else want to say what that other one is? Okay. Next on the agenda is update on pluggable transport. Nir?
Yeah, I don't think he's here.
All right. So I'll just reiterate, we, did get the basics of that in the release 0.21.0. So I think the issue really is next steps. We've been talking about various sorts of other sorts of transport that we might want to plug in. I think most of them are more different than the current Golang interface contemplates. So I think there's issues of what is the concept or definition of a plugin is something that needs to be opened up, and I'll just stop there. I don't think we have much more concrete to say at the moment, unless someone wants to add something. All right, I'll take that as a no. So if we think we've run off the end of our agenda, does anybody else have anything they want to add? Okay, that sounds like a no. All right, sounds like we're done. Thank you all.
Thank you.
All right. Bye.